after the interview with Jimmy Ward, I believe the locker room is gone. Yeah, you just let's talk about the second part of this topic first. You just alluded to it. You saw what Jimmy Ward said yesterday. I was there. How would you describe what you saw?
That was not good. And I think most people do. That was someone in my head is just, I just need to get through this season.
Pretty much.
And that's
what he
not
said, right?
the mindset you want for the players. Now, Jimmy Ward, I think he's one of the leaders of this defense. We all know when he's on, he's a tremendous football player. Wasn't on last game. That wasn't his best game. But typically.
Also playing out of position.
Also playing out of position. But the Jimmy Ward that I know, he is versatile to where he can do some of those things, playing the nickel and whatnot. But it's very clear when he signed with the 49ers to play safety, he did not want to be a nickel. He talked about before, the money that was on the table if he would play nickel and some other positions and whatnot in free agency. He's like, nope, I'll go back to 49ers, play safety. Like, he wants to be a safety and just be more of a versatile piece as opposed to, hey, you know what? Yeah, you've been tremendous for us at the safety position. You played very well. But we got a guy named Gibson. We got a guy named Talanoa Hufanga. So you want to come back here, you want to play, you got to play in the nickel. And I don't think he necessarily cares for that.
You got to play nickel with a broken thumb. Let me ask you a question. How difficult is it to play?
Looks crazy, too. Whatever cast they got on him looks crazy.
Yeah, so as a former NFL corner, how difficult is it to play press coverage or man coverage with you never had a broken thumb, but can you imagine? How difficult is that?
Yeah, I couldn't even imagine trying to play like that.
How do you do that? How do you do that?
We've seen Kwan Williams right now playing for the Broncos. He got one of those big old casts on his hands right now, and he's actually used it to punch a couple passes out. But nice. I don't think that's the easiest thing to do because you want to grab a little bit. And I know you don't want to get called for holding and whatnot, and then everybody hates DBs. I know everybody hates defensive backs, but you do want to grab a little bit and to not just be able to. It's just a nub. That's got to be difficult.
So the other part of this is John is basically saying that the locker room is out on the season, and it's interesting. When Kittle and Ayuk said what they said after the loss, that was again, it was Kittle saying, I'm playing well, but certain people on this team aren't essentially stepping up. And Ayuk said the same thing, and it's like, okay, so you're pointing the finger, but to no one in particular. If I were on the team, I would think, is he talking about me? And so I'm wondering, is that going to have a galvanizing effect in the locker room, or is this going to make it even worse? I don't know.
I think we saw some of this last year, maybe not to the extent of these comments that are coming out after that loss. I think clearly these players are frustrated, but they're probably looking at it like I am. That was my question before. Like, hey man, this offense has been weird all season.
Yeah.
And you look at who they have, and you just say the names out loud. And you say George Kittle, terrific. Deebo Samuel, terrific. Brandon Ayuk, terrific. Kyle Juszczyk, terrific.
Now McCaffrey.
Now you add McCaffrey to the mix, and even the others, guys like Juwan
Jeff
Jennings
Wilson,
and
Jeff Wilson.
Trent, they have a lot of guys.
Yeah.
So why is this team? And I have it pulled up on my screen right now. How the hell do the New York Giants average more points per game than the 49ers when all they have is really kind of two players, a quarterback that everybody thought sucked and was trash and was horrible and get rid of him, right? But he's there
and no weapons.
They have him, and he's playing well. And then they got Saquon Barkley, and that's it. Who is he throwing the ball to? Richie James is like their leading receiver, right?
That's right.
But they're averaging somehow more points than the 49ers.
Somehow, because coaching matters.
Because coaching matters. I mean,
there's a common denominator here.
Down to all the disgruntled players and whatnot. Maybe they're pointing a finger to nobody, but maybe they are pointing it directly at someone by the name of Shanahan. Yeah,
and that's not good. He has the bye week coming up, probably at the right time. He's going to have to get this team together. Darth Mexican says, okay, Kyle Shanahan, can we please get some emotion? Dude's on the podium like a damn robot. Win, lose, his scheme seems to be a reflection of his personality. Boring. I don't understand how 3 years ago, his scheme was the opposite of vanilla. Now it's as vanilla as can be. How does that happen? Just because Mike McDaniel's gone? Can't be.
Well, the question that I was just asked was, are people onto a scheme? And maybe it is a McDaniel thing. But again, look at the points right here and points per game. McDaniel, they are the next team up above the 49ers. They're averaging 0.3 points more per game than the 49ers. So it's not like they're lighting the world on fire.
Good point.
And, worse than them, you got Green Bay Packers. They're way down there. You got the Rams way down there in scoring offense. So it could just be a reflection of the scheme and how people are defending the scheme now. And it's like, hey, we know what you want to do. And it reminds me a lot of the Seattle cover 3 scheme, where Seattle cover 3, everybody, oh man, we're running this single high. We're going to run some variation of this match 3 that Seattle is running. And then over time, it's like, we got the answers to dog this defense now. And I think Kyle Shanahan kind of started that. And since then, you've seen a lot of people go over to more of a 2-high scheme and build their defenses a little bit different way. But it took a little bit of time, but eventually people caught up. I think that's what's going on to the 49ers, with the 49ers right now, and not just 49ers, the 49ers, the Rams, the Packers, even the Dolphins.
True.
They've had more explosive plays, but from a points per game standpoint, they're averaging 0.3 more than the Niners. Yeah. I think teams might have figured it out. So what's your counter? And Kyle, you're supposed to be a genius, supposed to have the counter, the answers to all these things and understand how defense works, but we're not really seeing the results of that yet.
Well, the counter is Christian McCaffrey, and what I would say is it's not the right counter, because here's what I keep pointing to. Yes, I think the scheme has been figured out a bit. It's not just his, but all these guys. It's a little gimmicky. A lot of it is based on pre-snap motion. I think people have figured out, man, like, just ignore it. Just ignore all that. It's window dressing. Just line up and call a play and don't worry about your miscommunications. But also, the thing that complicates this is the fact that the offense is good in the first quarter. They average like 7.5 yards per play in the first quarter. His script is always good. And then once he's past the script, it's over. He's got 5.8 yards per play in the second quarter, 5.4 in the third quarter, 4.6 in the fourth quarter. Like, the offense just falls off. And that's, again, like pointing to Kyle. Like, him and his dad must put together a nice little script every week. But then once that's it, he can't call his dad mid-game, and he doesn't have McDaniel to give him. This team is not making adjustments. And it's not just Kyle. It's like the whole offensive. It's the defense, too. Like, they're not making adjustments. They're getting out-adjusted at halftime. That's a big problem. And that's what was happening with Chip Kelly 6 years ago, if you remember. Couldn't make adjustments.
But even then, I saw you put out a tweet, and it was loud, right? When you said Chip Kelly and what he averaged second half, and then what Kyle Shanahan averaged in second halves. And Chip Kelly's was more than Kyle Shanahan. And that's wild, because if y'all remember back to Chip Kelly in that offense, it was not George Kittle, Deebo Samuel, Brandon Ayuk, Kyle Juszczyk. It was Chris Harper.
Vance McDonald, Jeremy Curley, Sean Drone. It was the least talented offense the Niners have had in a very long time. And I'm questioning, like, is Kyle really a better coach than Chip? I mean, maybe. But they're both kind of like gimmicky scheme coaches on offense. It's just Chip goes fast, Kyle goes slow. Kyle huddles up, Chip doesn't. But really, at the end of the day, where are the adjustments? Where is the offense after the first quarter? Like, Chip's offense is great in the first quarter. That tempo, teams aren't ready for it. Once they feel it, they're like, okay, I got that. There's like 4 plays. Okay, I can shut that down. At least in the NFL. Right now, I feel like the Niners offense is as vanilla as it was that year. It's just like, once you get past all the little pre-snap motion, what is the offense? It's like 4 screen passes, 3 runs, and what happened? I don't understand. But if Kyle thinks Christian McCaffrey's going to come and he can be as, I don't know. He needs someone to spur creativity. Maybe it's Christian, because it ain't Jimmy anymore.
Right.
Maybe it was Trey. All right. Thayer says, will we have any cap space to make any splashes in free agency next year? No. O-line, D-line, backup quarterback, cornerbacks, they got to sign Bosa or not. They got to figure out something there. Do you want to pay Bosa like a quarterback, or trade him for a quarterback? I don't know. They got to think about that. Let's see how many games he plays this year.
Yeah, that's a great question. I think Nick Bosa, you pay him like a quarterback. He's a game wrecker. He's a difference maker. I do think, he could be a little stiff. So, when teams, if they try to counter maybe his aggressiveness by getting him out there in space, that could be tough. But if we're just talking about just purely, being able to get to the quarterback, he does a tremendous job of that.
Let me ask you a question, and we're not trading Nick Bosa, but I'm an asshole, so I'm floating these things. Could you trade Nick Bosa for the number 1 pick in the draft next year? Number 1 pick. If he stays healthy and keeps doing Nick Bosa.
If the team that has a number 1 pick has a quarterback, I think that's something that they would potentially think about. The tough thing is you're not just trading for Nick Bosa, you're trading for Nick Bosa and a contract.
That's right.
And a lot of these teams kind of have to figure, look at where are they in the sense of trying to turn this thing around. Now, we just saw a couple years ago, 49ers had the number 2 overall pick. They were coming off of 6 wins or 4 wins or whatever it was at that time. I think 4 wins. And they draft Nick Bosa. Next thing you know, they're in the Super Bowl. Now, it wasn't just Nick Bosa. It was Nick Bosa. Right. It was Deebo Samuel. It was some other guys that contributed as well.
Great pick.
Overall, they showed that, hey, maybe you are a Nick Bosa away from being an extremely competitive team.
But there's a difference between Nick Bosa on a rookie contract and Nick Bosa on his second contract. There just is in terms of what 100%. The team is, right? So I'm just thinking, like, again, this is a question for Jed and Parag and Kyle. Would you rather have Nick Bosa for $32 million a year or the number one pick in the draft quarterback on a rookie scale? Now, you got to get the quarterback right. And maybe Trey Lance is better than anyone coming out this year, but if you could trade Nick Bosa for a franchise quarterback, I still think a franchise quarterback is more impactful than a defensive end because all the rules, I mean, you can't even touch the franchise quarterback. Nick Bosa gets a 15-yard penalty if he looks at him wrong. Right, and you can hold Bosa.
I think this quarterback class, I'm curious to see how it plays out because you look at Bryce Young, and he's terrific. He reminds me a lot of Russell Wilson, but he's like skinny Russell Wilson.
He's little, a little scary.
A couple of things though, he doesn't have the biggest of arms.
Yeah.
And he's very accurate, that intermediate range. So if Kyle's like, hey, I want a quarterback that's going to be more accurate intermediate than Trey Lance, then you will get that from Bryce Young. Okay. But then, does he have the arm strength to drive far hash throws on, deep outs? And if not, would that limit some of the things you're able to do offensively? And then how fast does he look against the NFL defense? And now, are you drafting a not as fast as you thought quarterback that's also small and frail, maybe 5'11", 185 pounds. He looks like, so we're not a big.
Is he definitely going to be the number one pick?
Get a little weird.
Is he definitely the number one quarterback right now?
I would say that. Here's what the 49ers could do. Let's say we don't know what we're getting from Trey Lance, right? I like the upside of him and what he potentially could be. Obviously he has to continue to stay healthy. But there might be a guy if you're willing to use a 3rd round pick on the quarterback or a 4th round pick and just say, look, this is Trey Lance's team, but we want to draft, Hendon Hooker.
There you go.
Now listen, I don't know if Hooker's going. He's just climbing up the charts. But,
I like that idea.
If there's a chance to draft someone that you think, how about this? I know who they'll like. The kid out of Wake Forest, Sam Hartman.
Okay,
they love Sam Hartman. He's
Why?
like a better version of Nick Mullins. He's extremely.
Can we get an athlete, please? Can we get an athlete, please? I want an athlete,
move,
quarterback. Okay.
He can move around.
Okay. Okay. Because I'm tired of like the Brock Purdy type of quarterback. I even like Nick Mullins, but enough, man. We need an athlete at quarterback in the NFL.
He probably moves a little better than Purdy, but like Purdy could like actually kind of move a little bit. But he's more of.
I had no idea that Purdy threw a pick in the game. I tuned out. I left the press box with 6 minutes left, and I didn't watch his draw. He threw a pick. Was it bad?
Like, gosh. I mean, I by then I was so inebriated.
Yeah, I just checked out.
I think he threw it like late in the game. I mean, obviously it was late, he got in late, but I think like down the field, like was he like driving or something? And I don't know. It was weird. But
Beats me.